We've been tracking a Fed scandal for days now, and now it's reaching critical mass. Jerome Powell thought he could hide $2.5 billion in mysterious renovations, but he thought wrong. Bill Pulte just made it official. He's demanding a forensic audit of every penny. What? An audit of the Federal Reserve? Well, at least this building project, at least. Trump's response, Powell's firing is now inevitable. But this goes deeper than a simple construction project. Well, America can't afford homes. Powell built himself a palace. While your savings evaporated through inflation, he was playing interior decorator with billions of dollars. Representative Anna Paulina Luna says the termination is imminent. Treasury Secretary Bessent confirms they're already vetting replacements. The Federal Reserve's century-long grip on America's wealth is slipping, and what they're desperately trying to hide in those renovated walls might just end the Fed forever. Keep on watching. While the Fed was secretly burning through $2.5 billion of your money, your joints were secretly breaking down as well. Chronic pain affects millions, but Big Pharma's solution is addiction and side effects. So here's what they don't want you knowing. Conolidine naturally optimizes your body's own painkillers, your endorphins, providing full body relief without dangerous pills. Over 1 million Americans, that's right, and hundreds of UFC fighters already use it. After 14 years of clinical research, it's proven safe, legal, worldwide, and it's non-addictive. Just like we're exposing Fed corruption, expose yourself to real relief. Try Conolidine for less than $1 per day. Try Cono.com/NNN. It's linked down below. You have nothing to lose but your pain, and Powell has everything to lose but his job. All right, moving right into our topic here. President Trump has the legal authority. Let's recap. President Trump has the legal authority to fire Jerome Powell.
I think the president has the authority to fire him. Others disagree.
But if he was
fired,
I believe he's violated the National Capital Planning Act, which, gives him for cause. This is just my view. So I think he's got all the legal rights in the world. That'll all be up to the president and his lawyers. But we'll see what happens. This building gets worse by the day, Laura.
I think the
worse by the day. Here's President Trump just a few hours ago on Jerome Powell. Listen.
Everything else is so strong, we're bullying through the rates, the high interest rates. The housing market would boom if this, numbskull, he's a numbskull. And if this guy would, can you imagine, we're talking about housing, he's building a building, he's building an addition, I guess for more people to tell him what to do, and he's always wrong. They had 71 different geniuses that they interviewed and that were put up. You probably saw that.
I did.
And with predictions. And the only one that got it right was me and one other person. 69 were wrong. This guy got it wrong, and he wants to put in thousands of additional people to tell him what to say. I mean, how many people do you need? Read a newspaper and make your own decision, right?
Yeah. Sir, are you thinking of removing him, or do you think he resigns before his term's out, Jerome Powell?
I'd love if he wants to resign. That would be up to him. They say it would disrupt the market if I did, but there are many people who say he should be removed because of the fraud of what he's doing at the Fed with regard to the $2.5 billion. He's spending $2.5 billion to I guess it's a renovation. I don't know.
That's all it is. It's just a renovation.
I'm very good at that stuff. I should go look at it at least. I feel,
yeah, we got a story up on it today. It's crazy.
Absolutely.
The building costs less to build than it's cost to renovate. It's insane. Yeah, it's crazy.
It's like one of the most expensive buildings in the world. He's putting all sorts of parks on the top of the building and that. And I guarantee the contractors are making a fortune. No, this is not a guy. This is a guy who was recommended. He was recommended to me by Mnuchin, and he worked out good.
Yeah.
Everything.
Trump Federal Housing Director Bill Pulte officially requests a tour. This is breaking 8 hours ago. A tour of the Fed renovations costing $2.5 billion. $2.5 billion renovation at the Federal Reserve. What do? They just turn on the printing presses and just say, all right, just spit out the money. Just spit it out. Just turn on the presses, guys. We need $2.5 billion. We need some new marble staircases and rooftop fountains and golden toilets. requesting a tour of the Fed renovation costed $2.5 billion after Trump says Jerome Powell could be removed if he committed fraud. As someone with deep experience in construction, I'm requesting to tour the Fed building and the new ridiculous renovation, which I believe are riddled with fraud. Yep. And, oh, Powell, man. Construction entrance at the Fed, $2.5 billion. That's crazy. Here we have more John Solomon discussing his sit-down with the president.
Grand conspiracy. Yeah, listen, this is the first time we've laid it out since the interview occurred this morning, and everyone can see it at 6 o'clock. But here's what he says. The president only learned recently about the grand conspiracy case. That's what I call it. It's not the real name of it. But the fact that Kash Patel had opened a conspiracy case treating the last decade of weaponization as an ongoing conspiracy, from clearing Hillary, pursuing Trump on Russiagate, trying to protect Hunter Biden, doing the Ukraine impeachment, protecting Biden from the Chinese plot to help him win the 2020 election. The FBI turns a blind eye to that.
Okay, so he's talking about, if you want to get more background, if you're not familiar with the grand conspiracy case, go and take a look at the other video we did. We've been covering it since the news broke. We've got a couple reports on it, so make sure to go get caught up on that.
Joe Biden finds classified documents. Oh, we better get a camera on Donald Trump to negate that. Looking at that as one ongoing conspiracy, which has a lot of benefits. You can go back and charge old crimes in an ongoing conspiracy. You can also take this case and move it out of Washington, D.C. and bring it to Florida, because one of the overt acts of the conspiracy would have been raiding Donald Trump's house. The president didn't know about that because the FBI doesn't normally brief a president on things. But when we broke that story, the president heard about it, learned about it, and he said, hey, I like the idea. I think it's a good way of looking at what happened, and maybe we finally get some accountability because we don't get any. And then, without any prompting, without me even asking yet, he says, I also think if that has a special prosecutor, that prosecutor should just look at anything credible about Jeffrey Epstein, and let's get this resolved. Let's get the American people the most transparency. Now, what does that mean? If there's a special prosecutor, this gets out of Pam Bondi's hands. It goes to an independent person. They look at it. They release what they can about it, and they tell the American people whatever grand jury can squeeze out of it. Now,
is that special prosecutor? All the rumors are pointing to Matt Gaetz.
I've done tons of reporting on Epstein. The Wall Street Journal and I have probably been the most prolific at doing this, going back to 18, 17. Miami Herald did some great work too. I think people are going to be disappointed what's in the government files, not because there probably wasn't good stuff to be had, but because the government did a crappy job investigating this. The Bush Justice Department in 07 and 08 could have gotten Jeffrey Epstein and made one of the largest scandals in American history. They gave him a pass, and they did it in the most cowardly ways. Let the state do it. They took a pass, and they didn't take the time to go get the sort of things that would have been explosive evidence, like a ledger or an accounting of what happened. And so Trump finally starts pursuing in 19. The FBI says Epstein kills himself in the jail. I think even when a special prosecutor gets into this, the government did such a poor job on this. We're all going to be a little disappointed. That said, the fact that the president is willing to let a special prosecutor look at this tells you that he wants the base, he wants all of America to have confidence in the final findings. And I think that this is a big moment, a big announcement for President Trump. Organic, sort of happened. I followed him. So you sure you're saying you're okay with a special prosecutor to look at Epstein? Yep, that's what I'm saying. Let's go do it. Let's also look at everything else. Because, hey, Democrats, you want a special prosecutor on Epstein? You got it. But we're also going to look at him. And we're going to look at James Comey and John Brennan and Jack Smith. And so I think the president has laid out something that I assume Pam Bondi will quickly follow up on. It's a big moment. Yeah, listen.
Yes, a very big moment indeed. And it's all happening right now. Let's keep going. Jerome Powell's firing is imminent. Representative Anna Paulina Luna says Jerome Powell's going to be fired. Firing is imminent. Powell's a fraud. Nick Sartor writes, Powell is a fraud who lied to Congress. Fire him and restore the home buying markets. Here is more just a few hours ago in the Oval Office. President Trump on Jerome Powell.
And do you have plans, or if you're back considering firing Jerome Powell? And what's your justification if you're thinking about this to do this?
Too late. He's always been too late, hence his nickname, Too Late. He should have cut interest rates a long time ago. Europe has cut them 10 times in a short period of time, and we cut them The only time he cut him was just before the election to try and help Kamala or Biden, whoever the hell it was, because nobody really knew. Obviously, that didn't work, but he tried to cut him for the Democrats, Kamala. And how did that work out? You'll tell me. It didn't work out too well, did it? But I think he does a terrible job. He's costing us a lot of money, and we fight through it. It's almost, the country's become so successful that it doesn't have a big impact, but it does hurt people wanting to get a mortgage. People want to buy a house. He's a terrible Fed chair. I was surprised he was appointed. I was surprised, frankly, that Biden put him in and extended him, but they did. So, no, we're not planning on doing anything. We're very concerned. He's doing a little renovation for $2.5 billion of the Fed, building a renovation, and they have a close to $900 million cost overrun, and it's a shame. But the biggest cost overrun is the cost overrun for interest rates, because we should be paying 3 points lower, and we would save $1 trillion a year in interest if that were the case. And all it is the stroke of a pen. And that goes for his board, too, because his board is not doing the job, because they should try and rein this guy in. So he's doing a lousy job. But no, I'm not talking about that. Fortunately, we get to make a change in the next, 8 months or so. And we'll pick somebody that's good, and we'll pick somebody. I just want a fair job. We want to see lower interest rates. Our country deserves it. We're making a lot of money. We're doing great as a country. We have no inflation, record stock market, record business, record everything. Everything's a record now. We had the worst inflation in history under Biden, and now we have almost no inflation. We've done a great job, and we should have the interest rates cut.
Let's go. Let's cut those rates. Let's get that housing market moving again. Okay, so everyone's asking who's the next Fed chair. Here's the president on that in the Oval Office.
They're not true.
So, Mr. President, there's lots of reports coming into this meeting that you planned on firing Fed Chair Jay Powell. Markets react.
Is that right? Those are reports, but they're not true.
So what would be useful to know, are you committed to picking someone from the outside? Are you going to interview individuals that are
so
on the
many
board
people
right
that
now?
want the job. I have people that I've known a long time. They're calling me, begging for the job. You know what you need there? A smart person with common sense, but you need a very smart person for that job. I think it's one of the easiest jobs in government. You show up once a month and you make a statement about where the economy's going, and we're going to raise or lower interest rates. It's probably the easiest job I've ever seen. That's why I'm trying to figure, why does he want to expand and add more people? He's going to add more economists to tell him what to do. But the economists, I was right. All the economists were wrong. They admitted it. They admitted it this morning. Quiet.
Quiet. Gotta love President Trump, man. Okay, continuing right on, Jerome Powell is coming under fire from the White House over the Fed's $2.5 billion building revolution. Pulte is calling for an audit and says there may be enough to terminate him for cause. Check this out.
$2.5 billion.
Are you calling for an audit to happen on the renovations?
There needs to be an audit on the renovations at the Federal Reserve. I think people need to in a bipartisan fashion, call for an audit. We have $2.5 billion. Who spends $2.5 billion on a renovation? I mean, I couldn't even think about how to do that. I mean, you know how many movie theaters you'd have to put in it, and all kinds of spas and pools and hot tubs and everything? I mean, you'd have to really come up with some crazy stuff to spend $2.5 billion. So it smells to high heaven, and I think Jerome Powell's going to resign. And if he doesn't, I think there's enough there for cause to terminate him.
There's enough there for cause to terminate him. They want to audit the renovation. I think when they're done with the audit of the renovation, audit the Fed. Here is the Secretary of Treasury, Scott Bessent, says a formal process has started to identify Jerome Powell's replacement.
That's when the interview process. You said previously the interview process would begin later on in the fall. There's been plenty of speculation as to whether that process would be brought forward. Mr. Secretary, do you still, as far as you understand, believe that's when the interview process to replace the Fed chair will begin in the fall, or has a formal process already started?
Well, look, there's a formal process that's already starting. There are a lot of great candidates. And we'll see how rapidly it progresses. It's President Trump's decision, and it will move at his speed.
If you remember the cabinet meeting a couple days ago, President Trump looked across the table at the Treasury Secretary and said, "You'd make a good Fed chair." You might be looking at the next Fed chair right there. And moving right along, we got some more news on this front, continuing with I believe we have here is this, the defunding of NPR and PBS. NPR, speaking of audit, NPR subsequently issued an editor's note warning that the Declaration of Independence is a document that contains offensive language. There's the editor's note. This story quotes the U.S. Declaration of Independence, a document that contains offensive language about Native Americans, including a racial slur. Yeah. That is the NPR. That's NPR. National Public Radio. Funded by your tax dollars, saying the U.S. Declaration is offensive. Here we have the CEO of PBS, Rapid Response, posting this 7 hours ago. Says she can't make any sense of an argument that we are somehow biased in any way on public broadcasting. Luckily, we have plenty of examples of the biased trash that passes at news on PBS and NPR. Rapid Response posting a thread. Oh boy. Oh, shall I dive deep into this? I don't know. But PBS, public broadcasting system, also paid for by your tax dollars. No argument, no bias.
So I asked them for examples. People often struggle to come up with examples of what really they're talking about. So we're always interested, obviously, in making sure that we're serving a multiplicity of viewpoints. You know, Bill Buckley made his home on public broadcasting with a series called Firing Line, which continues today with Margaret Hoover. We are interested in having different perspectives that we bring forward. But when I look at the range of our programmings on public broadcasting, I can't make any sense of an argument that we are somehow biased in any way. I asked them for example.
Shall we dive deeper? Okay, fine. We'll dive a little deeper here. PBS staff use 162 variations of far-right labels and only 6 far-left labels, an astounding ratio of 27-1, according to Newsbusters. One study found that the so-called gender ideology stories PBS NewsHour dedicated 90% plus of the airtime to leftist views. Nothing independent about PBS. Then PBS White House correspondent Yamashi Alcindor. Oh, I've had my moments with her in the press room. Characterized President Trump's patriotic 2020 Mount Rushmore speech as a love letter to white resentment that promoted the myth of America. Your tax dollars paying for this.
We founded this country. I think what we're seeing is a president who's determined to fly in the face of the experts, his own health officials, environmental experts, as well as people who are saying that there's really a myth of America, that this idea that America treated people well, that they treated men and women equally, that we founded this country just by our own wit, that is actually a lie, and that in fact what we're seeing is a celebration of America's independence on land that was stolen from Native Americans. And it's being seen and overlooked by 2 presidents, their figures rather, that owned slaves, and a 3rd president in Roosevelt who talked about going westward and who oversaw the desecration of native lands. That's why you saw so many people in this country, especially people of color, look really, really disturbed when the president and then candidate Trump started saying "Make America Great Again." He's really fitting in this history that is in some ways Republican history about the idea that
I've had enough. PBS produced an entire movie celebrating a transgender teenager's so-called changing gender identity called Real Boy back in 2017. I mean, the list goes on and on. I mean, this is one heck of a thread put by Rapid Response. It is straight up biased reporting over there. Jasmine Crockett enters the chat. We need USAID to fund Sesame Street in Iraq to prevent people from being radicalized against us. Oh, Sesame Street in Iraq.
world, or when you start to talk about whether or not Sesame Street or anything else that's on NPR or PBS ends up in other places, this is so that there is not this warped thought process about the Western world or about the United States. We're talking about making sure that we don't end up allowing people to be radicalized against us because they have a terrible vision of us, because they may be in a government that actually puts out bad, terrible propaganda about us. When you start to talk about whether or not...
Okay, Jasmine. Taxpayers should not be forced to fund far-left propaganda. Call and tell your senators to support President Trump's rescissions package. Defund PBS and NPR. Here is 24 hours ago, Speaker Mike Johnson on NPR and PBS discussing them being properly defunded. Check it out.
And to be so, the NPR and PBS components this is in our view the misuse of taxpayer dollars. They're biased reporting. They're not objective. They pretend to be so. They have for a long time, and the people don't need to fund that. I mean, we're in an age of you all know, you work in the industry. I mean, media is so multifaceted now. There's so many avenues and areas for information, and while at its origination, NPR and PBS might have made some sense, and maybe it does now, but it shouldn't be subsidized by taxpayers. So these are simple questions to answer for us. The House is acting appropriately, and I hope the Senate will do the same. I urge them, as I always do, to please keep the product unamended, because we have a narrow margin and we got to pass it. But we're going to process whatever they send us whenever they send us, and I'm hopeful that it'll be soon.
What's this say?
Defund NPR, defund PBS, audit the Fed. These are all things I can get behind. Can you? If you got value from this report, tap subscribe. It's time for my final thought. This isn't just about firing one bad Fed chair. It's about exposing a century of monetary manipulation. When Powell spends $2.5 billion on renovations, while you can't afford groceries, that's not incompetence. Okay, that's contempt. Bill Pulte's construction expertise is key here. He knows you can't spend that much without massive fraud or building something in secret. What were they constructing? Underground bunkers? Surveillance systems? Of course, timing matters as well. Powell crashed the housing market, destroyed your purchasing power, then renovated his fortress. And Trump gets it. He's always late. He's always wrong. But the real question is what they're hiding in those walls. Every corrupt regime builds monuments to itself before falling. And the Fed's golden palace might just be their tomb. NPR, PBS, being defunded. The Fed could be next. So here is the question. Should we end the Fed completely? I think if you guys know me well enough, you know my take. But I'd like to know yours. Drop a yes or a no in the comments. Let's continue this conversation down below. And also, while you're there, grab some gear from the merch shop. Help us expose the AutoPen scandal with our hilarious AutoPen, President AutoPen t-shirt. Go to the, check it out. I think you're going to love it. Also, support Alligator Alcatraz. That's the new resort for illegals that President Trump and Ron DeSantis just opened up. A wonderful resort. Has a lazy river around it. It's beautiful. And it has all natural wildlife in the lazy river. It's great. Air conditioning even too. Yeah, got it all. Go check it out. Trigger a liberal today at shop.nextnewsnetwork.com.